I've got John over here, and Joel, and Eli, and Willamies. And tonight we're talking about the wonderful power of music to impact what you see. In fact, music is so important. I think we even shared a quote this week on our social media about how you can have a handheld camera and you can have, and the scene can be kind of sketchy and a little bit not well filmed, but the music has to be perfect. And so we have with us tonight two of our sound designers, soundtrack creators that are here with us tonight. And Willamies actually is part of the symphony orchestra, and Eli has worked a lot with soundtracks, and they are the ones who wrote the original score for Tetelestai, and Joel was the one who was their coach throughout the whole process. And here we have John, who's going to be talking to us later more about Foley, but who also was part of the soundtrack team. So maybe Eli, maybe you can start and tell us why a soundtrack is so important.
Well, good evening, everyone. I think the soundtrack is important because the soundtrack translates what the picture is trying to tell. You know, let's say if you're watching something and you have no sound, you may have an idea of what you're seeing, but when you hear something combined with the picture, it translates more, and it could have an impact on your feelings, on your emotions, so that's why I think the soundtrack is so important to video in general, not only to film, but to any other video or whatever you want to do.
And now, because you guys are such perfectionists when it comes to music, does it bother you when you watch something and it has a really cheesy soundtrack and it's really bad? Does it bother your ears? Is it an immediate turnoff, or you do not even notice?
Well, for me, it does sometimes. It's so weird when you're watching something that the scene has to have some kind of sound or some kind of to create, let's say, a mood, and then for whatever reason the creators went in a different direction, and then you just feel it's not like you have a connection with whatever you're watching. It's like, what are they trying to do? I mean, the picture shows something, but the soundtrack is going on the opposite direction. So for me, it kind of bothers me a little, but sometimes it's intentional. They want to kind of create that feeling. Sometimes they want to for the viewer to feel awkward or disconnected, whatever, but for me it kind of bothers a little, not much.
Well, now, before we get any farther in this, I just want to give you a little taste of their work, because some of you have seen Tetelestai, and for those of you who haven't, I want you to watch carefully. But this scene is especially important because this is actually how we met Eli. So tell us just a tiny little bit about this scene before we watch it, Joel.
Yeah, we were organizing on the weekends because we worked with volunteer actors. So on the weekends, we would get a big group of people together. We find people mostly through Facebook and social media, and got our volunteers to come on board that way. And a big group of people, we went out into the countryside at this castle. We were doing this filming. And as we got there, we kind of look through everybody and see who you have available to act, And we saw Eli. We said, hey, I think that guy would do a good job being the blind man. And so got him all dressed up, say, hey, you're going to be a blind man. Jesus is going to heal you. And
he was amazing. He was incredible. So keep your eyes open for him, but don't just keep your eyes open for the blind man. You'll, of course, also see Joel, because Joel played the part of Jesus.
And you'll be hearing the music that Eli and Willamies produced as well. And so at that point, we had no idea that Eli even worked with audio at all. And so that was our first time we even met him. So
we just thought he made a great blind man. And so
one
listen
of the most prominent aspects of Jesus' life was his power over sickness. Matthew 15:30 says, great crowds came to him, bringing the lame, the blind, the crippled, the mute, and many others, and laid them at his feet, and he healed them. The people were amazed when they saw the mute speaking, the crippled made well, the lame walking, and the blind seeing, and they praised the God of Israel.
What type of
was
memories does
great.
that bring back to you?
When I see Lucas right there, because like he was the first, when I turned right and then he was right there, and he was supposed to be my nephew, my brother. I forgot, but it was awesome because he was so excited. I mean, look at his face when you watch that scene, because he was really like living that moment. It was, I mean, it brings back so much great memories, and it's great to watch it. Like, I don't know how long has it been since we filmed that? 2, 3 years? I
That's
don't
been
know. I
like
don't
4
remember.
years
4 years,
It was
right?
amazing.
or more,
It's
4 or
so
5.
it's
Yeah.
oh my goodness, time flies though. It's so great to watch it, after that many years, because you have no idea of how good it was. When you're filming, you just have no idea of how it's going to turn
So
out.
after that day, when, and maybe even quite a bit after that, there was a friendship that developed, and you didn't know that you were going to be, both of you, Willamies and Eli, would be working on the soundtrack for Tetelestai. And it was amazing, and it was unbelievable to see them work together, right, Joel?
Yes, it
Tell
was.
us a little bit more about that.
Well, I am not a musician, but I was doing the post-production coordination and stuff. So I got to go in there and work with them and kind of, give them the ideas that we were having. We'd like it a little bit like this. This has to feel this way or that way. But they didn't need much help at all. Like here, I brought with me my list. This is basically what I would take to them. I'd be like, here's the time codes, and this song needs to be our atonement theme, or this song needs to be our substitution theme. And they would watch through the video one time and they would nail it like almost every time. One of my favorite moments was actually during the law. We were recording
Episode
the
number
law.
5, 10 Commandments.
10 Commandments. And I got there and I'm like, guys, I have nothing on this one. I do not know what to do here, because it's the law. It's annoying. Like it's how sinful we are. It's conviction, bad stuff. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. But we don't want this episode to be so depressing and heavy for people. We want the music to help carry people through. And Williams was like, I have an idea. Just start playing the video. And he sat and he played for 12 or 13 minutes straight. And then at the end of that, he looks up and he's like, what do you think of that? It's like, that was
We're gonna let Williams tell us a little bit more about that, because what you need to understand, you just saw a video clip in English, and Eli is accompanying us. He's telling us what his thoughts are in English. Now Williams doesn't speak English, and Eli would tell him, okay, this is what we're going for, and then they'd use their own language. But he's just like, he'd look at what was on the screen, and they just had this vibe going, right? He'd tell him what it was going. Johnny, why don't you go ahead and tell Williams what we were just saying?
The video, he felt it.
Eles estavam falando que você às vezes sentia a cena basicamente visualmente, porque você não conseguia compreender claramente todo o inglês, né? Aí você fazia baseado no coração daquilo que estava vendo, não ouvindo, né? Então, como foi isso? Como foi que você sentiu assistindo as cenas, mas às vezes não compreendendo 100% o roteiro, né? Enquanto você compõe as músicas?
É um desafio, né? É um grande desafio.
So it's a challenge. It's a really big challenge recording when you don't understand all of what's being said.
Mas a gente vai construindo uma ideia, e mais ou menos quando a gente já vê as cenas próximas,
We start building the idea when we see the scenes being acted out.
Você já vai tendo mais ou menos uma direção. melódico e contextual da trilha.
We start having a melodic direction and a context with which we can work.
We've got a great clip right here. This is you filming?
I think this is John.
John filming? Okay, of behind the scenes at the studio with Wilhelmus and Eli. And you can see their excitement. And I think Eli said this is in the very beginning stages, right? They're just getting an idea together of what they want. So go ahead and let's see that scene.
That's so.
Oh, I don't think we can hear it.
No matter how much we'd like to be in, not time. God is not limited by space. We humans are completely limited by
My
space.
action, I wouldn't like.
No matter how much we'd like to be in, more
Já sei!
That was.
His conductor, Eli.
Goodness.
Faço no grave, depois...
That's low.
Isso. Aí depois...
not limited by time. God is not limited by space. We humans are completely limited by space. No matter how much we'd like to be in more than one place at a time, we can't. No matter how fast we travel or how much our schedule demands of us, we not limited by time.
Esses
Wow,
barulhos,
it's amazing.
esses
These
barulhos
sounds.
por pi, por pá, nós músicos nós entendemos tudo.
These little sounds. Beep, beep, boop, boop. We musicians, we understand what all that means.
You had your own special language all the time. I only got to see you guys work together just a couple times.
Vocês tinham a própria linguagem musical. Eu só vi isso poucas vezes.
Assim, no meio musical existe uma conexão entre os músicos. Às vezes um olhar já
In
o
the,
outro
music,
músico
in the musical world, there's this connection between different musicians. Sometimes it's just a look that we give and we just already understand it.
assim, um olhar a gente já entende. Às vezes tem o próprio vocabulário que os músicos usam entre eles e nós entendemos mais ou menos o que vai acontecer ou o que está necessitando para aquele momento.
And even with the vocabulary that we use between musicians, the other person's already understanding exactly what we mean or what we need. And
E também tem a afinidade, né? Eu e o Eli, nós nos conhecemos há muito tempo e tocamos por muito tempo. Então, existe afinidade musical entre nós dois e sabemos, num olhar, o que está acontecendo.
there's also just like flow. Eli and I, we've worked together for a long time. And so we've worked so much together. Sometimes all we have to do is look at each other or give that look and we already understand what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have the scene of the garden. Do we have the betrayal scenes here with us?
Yes, we do.
That's some of my very favorite shots. It's just so impactful and so moving. And I think for a lot of people, it ends up being some of the most moving scenes for a lot of different people. Let's see. We're going to show that right now. Or let's just adjust in the music. Here we go.
When he had finished praying, Judas, one of the 12, appeared. With him was a crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders.
This is great.
Judas, one of Jesus' 12 disciples, had been paid off by the religious leaders to betray Jesus and hand him over to them.
Oh my goodness, this is so great.
Mary.
The men seized Jesus and arrested him. "Am I leading a rebellion?" said Jesus. that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I was with you, teaching in the temple courts, and you did not arrest me. But the scriptures must be fulfilled.
Oh,
Mary.
this is so amazing.
Remember his Mary voice.
Mary, yes.
Yeah, Mary's voice.
Oh, this is so great. Oh, man.
I still remember that night. I remember, I don't know if it was Eli or Willemy's been like, that lady, we need the lady singing. Let's add the lady singing. You know, that little Arabian sound to it.
Eu lembro
I
daquela
remember
noite,
that.
não sei se foi o Wii ou Eli falando, mas a gente precisa daquela mulher que canta.
E nós chamamos ela de Maria, né? Ó, bota a voz de
Maria.
Maria.
And we call her Mary, but let's put Mary's voice. We call her Mary's voice. And just to let you know, that voice, they didn't actually sing in the studio with Pro Tools and the different plugins you can use in the software. They'll play the voice on the piano and it imitates the human voice singing. So, yeah.
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 Eli,
It's
That
great.
scene actually, you guys did over 5 hours of music, I think, for Tetelestai. And that scene that we just watched right there, I think is the only piece of music that we copied and pasted into another piece of Tetelestai. That music is the base for the intro scene to every single episode in Tetelestai. You just added more instruments on top to make it a little bit more impactful.
Yeah,
But
yeah, we
all
did,
of the
yeah.
rest of the music is played original over 5 hours. You guys did an amazing job and a lot of work.
And the most unbelievable thing to me is the fact that it's not just making up 5 hours of music. The fact that it's so seamless, but that there's all these themes woven into it. So that every time substitution is introduced, then there's like this substitution music, and then there's like the atonement music, and there's like condemnation, and there's like judgment of God, and all of those things that you blended in. It's just so beautiful. It's just amazing. Really seeing the hand of God in it.
I have a question for Willemys, and I'll say it in English and then I'll translate it to Portuguese. But I mean, Eli talked in the beginning a little bit about the wrong soundtrack doesn't sound great, you know? And some people would just download music or get licensed music and put on a video and use that as background music. What's the difference with when you record music versus soundtrack music? And how does that impact the hearts and the minds of the viewers? E agora eu vou traduzir. Para o Willemys, tem uma pergunta para ti. Qual a diferença entre gravar uma trilha sonora e apenas baixar música já feita? E como é que isso impacta o coração da pessoa? Onde é que isso pode levar uma pessoa por causa disso?
Li ou eu?
Para você.
Para mim? Quando você cria uma trilha, você está desenhando musicalmente aquilo que você está vendo na imagem. Geralmente,
when you create a sound score, you're designing what you're seeing in sound. So you see the image and you design it in sound.
quando você baixa uma música, compra uma trilha já produzida, aquela trilha ela não teve um contexto visual como a trilha que está sendo produzida. Então, existem momentos em que
when you download a song, that song wasn't created for a specific moment in time. It's not coinciding with the images you're doing. So if you buy or download a track, it wasn't created for that.
Então, assim, resumindo tudo, a trilha ela vai desenhar o que você vai estar vendo. Então, naquele momento que você está produzindo, você está desenhando musicalmente aquela cena. E algumas vezes, ou a maioria das vezes, a música que ela está sendo comprada, já é uma trilha que nós chamamos de produzida, às vezes ela não vai atender essa demanda.
And so when you record and you design your own score, it's designing and supporting the images, the visual images that you're seeing. And when you just download a music or search for a music that has the right feel, it's not specifically supporting those images. Eu queria perguntar o que isso faz com o coração da pessoa? Impacta mais o coração? Pode levar a mente para algum lugar? Como que isso se pode falar com a pessoa?
Eu costumo falar que a trilha ela é o terceiro ator.
I like to sometimes say that the sound score is the third actor in the
Então
film.
ela vai estar levando a mesma mensagem que você vai estar vendo na tela. E a gente vai estar levando isso através do som.
He brings the same sound, same message that you're seeing on the screen, and it does that through the sound.
Ela vai ajudar na condução da emoção ou da ação, ou assim, na condução das emoções que aquela imagem está passando.
And he basically takes the emotions of the person and takes them somewhere.
Isso.
Now, for those of you who are watching and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm so impacted by this. I loved watching Tetelestai, and I can totally see the hand of God working through this. I loved it. We just have something that we want to tell you tonight. Maybe Joel can tell you why I find our theme verse that we're going to read for this.
Awesome, good deal. Yeah, we're really excited because the soundtrack, it really does take you to a place of worship a lot of times. It so beautifully translates the message of the Bible, of Tetelestai, and goes hand in hand with the message of the gospel, that it's many times we just want to sit down and listen to just the music as well when we're wanting to think about other things. You're not necessarily wanting to pay attention to everything that's being taught, but you want your mind to go into that place. So we enjoy listening to the soundtrack all by itself. It's beautifully produced. When you listen to it by itself, you also hear so many.
But we've just been not sharing it, right?
Yes, we haven't been sharing it. We've been selfish about it. But that ends tonight. It ended tonight. Our selfishness ended. And so now we have, and I believe Arlen is going to put in the comments here, the link to the Tetelestai playlist, the soundtrack playlist on YouTube, so that all of you guys can also take advantage of the soundtrack. Give it a listen, enjoy it, and we pray that it blesses all of you.
There you go. So make yourself a mug of hot chocolate, or if you're a coffee drinker, grab your Bible and play Tetelestai soundtrack, and make sure to leave a comment and share it with your friends. I want to end this section talking about the soundtrack with Tetelestai's theme verse, because I just see it so beautifully played out in your lives. It's from 2 Corinthians 4, verses 6 and 7. For God, who said, "Let light shine out of darkness," made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of the glory of God displayed in the face of Christ. Oops, I just skipped. Here we are, verse 7. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all surpassing power is from God and not from us. So I see that amazing power of God working through your lives as well. And I'm just so thankful that you guys were willing to let God use you and be his instruments to truly impact the world with the eternal story of redemption, because Tetelestai would not be what it is without the soundtrack, right, Joel?
Not at all.
So thank you guys so much for being. Obrigado por ser instrumentos nas mãos de Deus para impactar o mundo com a história eterna da redenção. Tetelestai não seria o que é sem vocês. So thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you for taking this time out to be with us. Can't wait to hang out in person when COVID-19 is over. Vai ser muito bom estar junto quando esse tempo de COVID terminar.
And you both of you have to come to our new studio and start recording some music here.
Oh, yeah. True.
Vocês vão ter que conhecer agora o estúdio novo.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures though, and it looks amazing. So I can't wait to actually do something there, Especially if it's with Willamese, it's gonna be great,
That's right. All right. Well,
and he
thank
was the
you
first
guys.
one that came to my mind when you guys asked me to help producing the music for it. He was the first one that came to my mind because we have such a great connection, and he's such a great musician. I mean, he's unbelievable, in all
Willamese,
whatever
ele
he
está
does.
só falando coisas incríveis sobre você. Ele falou
Obrigado.
que assim que ele ficou sabendo do projeto, ele pensou em você porque você é um músico tão talentoso.
And,
Então ele sabia que tinha que ser você.
Just since Willamese doesn't exactly know everything we're saying, he's played internationally. He's played at and he's even composed for great orchestras in southern Brazil. And I'm not sure what other countries. Eli knows
He
it all.
he makes
He decided to
arrangements
play-
for a very fancy festival that happens in southern
He
Brazil every
was,
year, I
he
think.
was also in Mexico with the orchestra,
Mhm.
the
And in
symphony orchestra.
Tucson?
Yeah.
Right, Vietnamese? Tucson. I remember. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys and God bless you. Big hugs, abraços fortes. Deus abençoe. Muito obrigada por ter feito. And now we're going to transition into our Foley section. Now we're going to talk. Thank you guys so much.
Deus abençoe a todos.
Amen.
Thank you.
I want you, Eli, next time when we record Foley for our next film, come help us.
Sure.
Right.
Count on.
Now I have my beautiful sister here. This is Stephanie. Stephanie is married to Joel. So
That was just here.
that was just sitting here. Joel, who played the part of Jesus and who also did a million other things. Stephanie and Joel are both absolutely, thank you, Laura, are both absolutely incredible artists in every sense of the word for looking at things and creating. And we have John. And tonight we're going to now talk about another important part, not just the soundtrack, but something that's called Foley. Foley is a name that was invented after, oh, it wasn't invented. It was a name that came for the man who invented it, a man named Jack Foley, who died in 1967, was born in the 1800s and died in 1967 and invented it. Tell us what Foley is, John.
Foley, if you read it on a paper, first looks like folly, but it's not folly, it's Foley. Foley is basically the process of creating the sound in studio or outside of what's happening on the screen. So the most common example might be if you see someone walking in the movie and you hear their footsteps, 99% of the times when you hear their footsteps, it was not actually recorded on set. What they did was they would come into a studio and they would get a microphone and put it really close to their feet.
The movie.
Really close to their feet. So you can see 5 feet. And record someone stepping on the ground in the studio. So that's a simple example of what Foley is. But almost everything in the movie, whether someone's sitting down in a chair, whether someone scratches their shirt, whether someone gets stabbed with a knife, or whether someone's shooting a gun, or whatever they're doing, all that noise,
Glass breaking, screams, slaps.
everything that happens in the movie, I would say at least 90-95% of those sounds you hear are actually recorded in the studio. If you can imagine maybe a war scene in a film and it's the final battle, and you can actually hear the actors having like a last, declaration, like, my life was worth it because of this, that, and the other thing. Meanwhile, there's like people dying in the background and people fighting, and you can't hear any of that. It kind of all fades out, and you can hear the guy speaking really quietly, as he's on his deathbed. So all of that sound is put in layers so that they can control what you hear and what you don't hear. And so it's not recorded on scene. They do record sound on scene just as a reference, but then they record the sound with better quality in studio. So that's what Foley is.
Awesome. So Foley is enhancing the video that you've seen and actually in post-production, recreating all of those sounds. And as Johnny showed us in our last live that we just did in Portuguese, it isn't always exactly the original. You might never, go ahead, Steph.
No, I was just gonna say, since everything had to be recorded that you saw during Tetelestai project, we had to have a Foley studio, which we didn't have a Foley studio. So we took advantage that Cynthia and Arlen were going on a long trip, and we took over their dining room. And since they lived out on a farm, we decided that it would probably be better not to have all those city noises. And then we got to work creating our own Foley studio by getting every mattress we could think of. We even
All of our mattresses off of our beds.
and then
Moving the dining room table out.
we got a big couch and we put it against the doors. We blocked everything that we could have.
Sticking things up on top of our counter, piling it up.
And then we brought in dirt,
Wheelbarrows of stuff.
wheelbarrows of like
Rocks,
folias,
sand,
leaves,
mud,
and
branches.
everything that you could think of, because everything that you see has a noise. So you need the actual material to make that noise. So we're going to show a little video and what our Foley room looked like during Tetelestai. Roll it, Arlen.
Thankfully, the houses here in Brazil are not carpeted.
Okay, Arlen, this is what has happened to your home already. The next day
Passing the
after
living
you
room,
leave.
going to the dining room. Oh my goodness.
This is your living room. Oh boy. That is There's the dirt.
See, praise the Lord, no carpet.
There's the leaves.
Yes.
Mattresses everywhere.
It's gotta be fun though, right? This is like
It is.
such fun stuff to work on.
Satisfying to junk your house.
Was it good? Perfect.
There's Johnny very concentrated.
Yes. Yes. Nice. And then they'd send us little videos, right? Look here.
So
This is great.
where Johnny is at this moment is our new and improved Foley room, which
A real
we
Foley
just
room.
now finished, and Lord willing, we'll be making lots of different sounds and Foley sounds and tracks and everything in this in the new
So
Foley room.
in Tetelestai, it was a whole learning process. The whole production, we were learning how to do film, how to create cinema. We didn't start with a trained team in audiovisual production or a production team. We learned along the way, and the budget went accordingly. We didn't
That's why
have
we
a
started as
budget.
kids,
We
right?
didn't have a budget for creating sound effects, and so that's what we had. We had Cynthia's house. She was traveling, and we just used what we could do to make it work, and God blessed it. It turned out great, and from that we learned of how it could be better in the future. And so God has blessed us, and now we have the studio. I'll give you a short tour. This is just our mixing and mastering room, but we have a whole about 100 meters down here. But here you can see the sound mixing island there. And down here, underneath this carpet, there's a surprise. I'm going to try to lift it up for you here, just a second. So in Foley, you need a lot of different materials. You need dirt, rocks, metal, wood, leaves, and all of that tends to make lots of dust, and it tends to dirty things and stuff like that. And so you need a
Which is all good and fine when your coworkers
you need a place where you can just keep that stuff without get everything messy. So if you look down here, I just opened up
Foley pit.
right now. There's nothing in it, just some light bulbs. But
Storage room.
down here in these holes, we could fill it with rocks and dirt and sand and branches and leaves and hay, and or leave some different materials like pieces of metal, pieces of wood, and with that you can create some different sounds. And so I wanted to give you guys an example of that. I want you guys to all imagine in your heads some pigeons in the middle of a peaceful park, and imagine now that the camera cuts to a pigeon who's pecking their
John, you should block your video.
Yeah, block your video so that,
Yeah.
or just do it outside of the camera.
Just so it's the sound.
So they don't see your pigeon.
What's that? So they don't see what?
So they don't see your pigeon.
Oh, okay.
So that it's a secret. There you
All
go.
right, so-
Up to the lights.
Imagine that
Camera
you
pans.
are seeing a pigeon in your mind. Close your eyes, and he's just there pecking at the food. He's pecking at the food in the middle of the park that's on the ground.
With a cute little Asian girl feeding.
Shh. Can't talk. He's pecking at the food, and suddenly, what happens? I don't know if you guys
He
could
flew
hear
away.
that.
Yes, we heard it.
He flew away. What was that?
It was your pigeon.
That was my coat.
Good.
That was my coat.
Nice.
Another coat. So they commonly use pieces of leather gloves, or a coat or something like that for the sound of birds flying away. I don't know if you've ever watched those like amazing documentaries where there's like lions out in the middle of Africa and birds and alligators, and the sound is perfect. The sound is perfect. And it's
Even
like,
though it's like
you
40
can hear
miles
the
away,
lion-
right?
You can hear the lion walking, and the lion is just like you can hear his footsteps Do you think they were close
And
enough to
breathing,
that
you know?
lion where they could actually record his footsteps? No, they have this huge lens on a safari truck with tourists talking in the background about 100 meters away. There's no way they would have actually been able to record that sound. They recorded the lion walking in a studio later. Probably someone with socks on their feet stepping on piles of hay. And so that's what Foley is, and that's the power of Foley. You can
And
really
we have some clips to show you about some Foley being done during Tetelestai.
Awesome.
Filmed on our cell phones.
So which one are we going to start with here?
Well, let's do the branches one, just so you can get an idea of making noise, because everything that you see has to be recreated. So it's even
This blows me away.
touching the
trees.
This will blow your
The
mind, and
trees.
you'll see how important even the very slightest sound
Turn
is.
up your sound. Turn up your sound. So you can notice there that
That's amazing.
You notice that there's Stephanie and there's Julio that are touching branches. So Stephanie was following Eve, I think, and Julio was following Adam, watching on the screen. Everything they did, they imitated with the mic right on top of their hands.
Unbelievable. We don't even think about those things. And yet if it's not perfect, of course your mind notices it, but you don't even know why it doesn't look right. That's incredible. Show the scene that shows the guy reacting to which later will be whipping noises, but this is not the whipping scene, because then you film the whipping
scene.
Foley somewhere else.
This is
this is just the reaction of the man,
slaves in
right?
Egypt.
And it's just one of the reactions, right, of one man. And so the man standing up, Guga, is looking at the screen, just telling him timing, right? And Janderson, who is now learning Arabic and lives in Germany, is on the ground and he's reacting.
So in this scene, what's going on there is the person that's hitting the guy on the ground, Janderson, the person that's hitting him is watching the screen, and he's watching the slave master. And as soon as the slave master hits the slave, he gives a little tap on the back so that he knows how he can react with his voice. And then if it's a little bit off, then we can edit and we can push the sound a little bit this way or that way so that's synced up perfectly with the actor. So that's what's going on.
Now you guys did a lot of crowd scenes, so you had to do a lot of reacting to different things, and then
we'd do a lot of recording and then just do one voice and then another, and we would blend them all together.
That's called Walla.
Oh yeah.
When you record the sounds, it's Foley, but when you record voices that are undistinct voices in the background, it's called Walla. Because actually, that's what they used to do in Hollywood. They would get a whole room filled with people, and if you have a restaurant where people are talking, they'd actually just get everybody to start saying Walla, 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 and there'd be a whole group of people that you can't hear what they're saying. They're saying Walla. So that's where
I remember. I think there's one scene of all of Tetelestai. There's only one scene where I actually think about the Foley, or I guess it's Walla, not Foley, because in that one scene I can hear Stephanie's voice, but only because she's my sister. And I'm like, there's Stephanie's voice.
Oh no.
And it's in the scene of
I do the lady in labor.
Right. Well, yes, I know that, but it's also you being the laboring woman too. So, but there you go, guys. She is the woman in labor in that scene, but she was not in labor. It's all fake.
Labor.
But it's
we just released our soundtrack on the YouTube. Maybe we'll have to just release the sound effects.
Oh no.
Stephanie in labor.
But it's actually the scene of the leper coming, which actually we're going to do another live with Stephanie talking about the leprosy. which that's
Next
going to be a
week.
whole, yes, do not miss it
On
next
Thursday.
Thursday. Stephanie's going to be talking about
Special
that.
effects makeup and special like green screening and stuff like that. Joel will be talking all about that.
Most of the people,
FX digital.
so do not miss it. It's going to be amazing. But most of the people are watching that and they're looking, oh my word, look at that leprosy. And they're thinking that every time I watch it, I think, oh, Stephanie, I hear her because I can hear her voice in the crowd screaming.
She loves
Which
me.
I can hear her. It's my sister. She's screaming. But yes, that's the one scene. All other times I never even think about the soundtrack.
So let's
of
show
the
already
special
the Foley with the mud stomping since we
Yes,
already did
there
the
you
whipping
go.
scenes. And we have a couple more videos we could show you guys here too.
So this one is mud.
It's mud.
And this is
on our
Stephanie's
farm.
lovely feet stomping.
Stomping in mud because Johnny didn't want to. No, I'm just kidding. He was doing the sound part.
And action, mud stomp.
Mud stomp. Size that mic.
Now every time you see the Israel slaves in Egypt,
You know that a woman was actually the one making the noise.
mud stomping.
That's great. Now, as you've seen, Johnny showed us a coat doing the sound of
Sorry.
birds flying. But many times there are traditionally sounds. You said a lot of times they'll use leather for the sounds of birds flying. But there are some really gruesome things that, of course, nobody is going to stab flesh for stabbing. Johnny, what did you just stab? Was that an orange?
Yes.
Do that again. Listen carefully. Listen to what Johnny's going to do.
I don't know if you're gonna be able to hear it. Where's my mic on this thing?
I think we did. I think I did hear it. Go ahead and do it again.
Isn't it next to the camera?
I don't think so. I don't
Go,
know. I'll
do
just
it.
try it.
Ooh, we heard it. But we didn't use keys and oranges.
There's
We're gonna eat
knives
this later.
and banana stalks.
There you go. They use knives and banana stalks. And maybe you're thinking, isn't this
I
a
cut
Bible
myself.
series? Isn't that a little bit gory? There is some goriness. It's not gruesome, but the Bible does talk about horribly terrible things. And so the violent scenes that we're going to see right now are from?
Of stabbing a banana stalk.
No, yes, but it's from the.
Oh, you're saying we're into Tetelestai. Okay.
Yes. Don't worry, only banana stalks were harmed in this filming of this.
This is showing the depravity of mankind
No men were stabbed.
before the flood.
Yes, there you go. Just stabbing of banana stalks. So here we go. Listen carefully for the bananas.
The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on the earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. The Lord was grieved that he had made man on the
That's
earth,
violent.
and his heart was filled with pain.
There it is.
Ugh. That makes me grimace. Ugh.
Yeah.
And often
So-
you'll not just stabbing, like you could stab a banana stalk or cabbage, which is traditional, but then you'll overlay it. So you get, like, if it's a big stab, you stab the cabbage or the fruit or the watermelon, and then you might get a sponge or a rag with water and squish it in your hand.
Oh, that's a little bit too much
And
details.
no, but you get all these different things. And you
Yeah.
layer it, and then you adjust it.
Divide it.
It's realistic. So
Speaking of layering, in our last live, you told us what one of the most complex scenes was for Foley for Tetelestai. Tell us a little bit more about that again.
So that was the ark scene. If you've watched Tetelestai, there's a shot where the world is flooding, and there's a guy hanging onto rocks. There's a guy hanging onto a rock, and then suddenly a big wave comes, and it takes this guy and throws him
It's a
underwater.
tragic scene.
And so with all of that, we had to record the waves of the ocean. We had to record rain and wind and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes the wind we recorded fakely, just blowing near the microphone, things like that. And then suddenly the water goes over it and the sound is deadened. And underneath there, it's just debris, flying debris with a flood. And you hear wood breaking, you hear cloth ripping, you hear the bubbles going up as if this guy is getting thrown around in debris. And it's a terrible, frightening sound of what are you going to be doing in the water. And actually in the scene, when you actually record it, none of that sound is there, but you don't even know what's happening to the guy. But because you can hear wood breaking, you imagine that wood breaking against that guy, and you hear all these sounds, and suddenly the camera comes up out of the water, and suddenly you hear the rain again, and you hear the thunder and the lightning, and you see the arc in the background, and you hear the creaking wood, this huge massive ship, you know. And so how do you create that wood, you know
How
what I
do you
mean?
create that creepy wood?
That creepy wood. And so
that creepy
all of
scene.
that, you know, you collect materials. You have a room full of things you can use to make,
Everything.
you know, whether that's a piece of rubber mixed with a piece of wood. Let's try it this way. You know, it's trial and error
I
until
remember
someone's like,
even
"Yeah,
the
that sounds
whipping scene, we would try different whips because some of them wouldn't make
Some of
the
them didn't sound exactly what
or
you're
whipping
looking
the
for.
flesh like it would be on a band's back, or different things we would try. And I have to tell the funniest scene because it was hilarious. John is a great actor because he did a few of the Foley scenes, and he did Jesus.
And it's just sound acting.
It's just sound acting, but he had to do the demon possessed man.
Episode 8.
Episode 8, go watch it. And the demon possessed man actually throws himself on the ground in the episode.
Cut himself all up
and thrashing all over with the demon in it. And so John, to do the scene, he had not only have to do the sound of the man's grunting voice, but he had to throw himself on the ground and make the same exact, try to imitate the man. So he did such a good job. And I really wanted to put the video in here, but I didn't.
She didn't say that while I was recording. She was laughing, she was laughing her head off at me.
I was trying to keep a straight face. She did such a good job, though.
I was trying to go into a spiritually dark place while imitating this guy, and she's like trying not to laugh. And
it was really good. But at some points, it was pretty funny. And then at one point, he kicked the mattress that we had propped up for the sound, and it knocked all the way on top of him, and he was completely enveloped in this mattress, and it was so funny.
And thankfully,
it was
Stephanie
so funny.
caught it on camera.
I caught just the after the mattress was on him. I wasn't filming exact time, but it was really funny.
And Stephanie had to promise Johnny's wife
maybe you guys can offer me some kind of like, you know, and I might send you the video.
Stephanie had to promise Johnny's lovely wife that she wasn't going to show the video tonight because she doesn't want to have nightmares about John making those types of noises.
Writhing on the
not
floor.
Conducive. Right.
Writhing
just
on
wasn't
the
blessing them.
like a zombie.
It was funny though.
Yes, but amazing to hear all these stories. I think we made our way through these videos, didn't we? Or is there still some more?
We didn't show the levels video.
Okay.
It shows how important it is for the levels too. And if you guys noticed too, all the sound effects that we're actually creating are minimized greatly because the biggest effect like we want is the teaching and the sound and the soundtrack. So all the Foley you do is very minimal, but it's to enhance and not distract, like she said. So in a normal movie, you would hear obviously a lot, but then you don't want something distracting too. So it's very important to have the levels right in the post-production. So I think we're gonna see a little bit of Johnny messing with levels here or something.
For instance, if I play these are all at the same level.
There you go. That was a nice long video.
It's really far away and splashing. You can't have it sounding like he's right next to you.
So
yeah, that's really cool.
And just to remember, those were not recorded there at that location. We went to a swimming pool and put the mic close by. And first we said, okay, let's first record that kid in the background. And we imitated what the kid was doing with our hands or a little bucket or something. And then we went to the next one. And then we went to the next one. There's 4 people, I think. And we recorded the sound for each person and tagged the sound, the file name with which person it was, put them all in line on the timeline. And then I was commenting in the video that the levels were too high. It's because the sound in the background was way too high. And so we had to take it down and adjust that. And that was a super simple scene. Now imagine like war going on, a crowd scene with war going on and people talking, explosions, all of those sounds, every single thing you see in that scene is recorded separately.
It's
So
unbelievable. It's amazing. And the Tetelestai soundtrack just, we saw the music at the beginning of this live, and then we've been talking about Foley and the magic that's added in just to enhance it. The Tetelestai soundtrack is absolutely so amazing and incredible, along with the teaching and the music and the sound effects, that there are people, like we've got one of our Tetelestai viewers has requested the teaching soundtrack so that he could listen to it. One of our Tetelestai viewers, who is actually a retired sergeant, so that he could listen to it every day when he was jogging. And so actually we're getting ready to, hopefully, Lord willing, in the future, make some partnerships with some radio stations. I believe that one of the only
Just the audio of
just
video,
the
not
audio
soundtrack.
playing. No, the all of it together.
Yeah, the whole
With the
audio.
music, because it is so realistic and it does enhance what you're hearing. It's almost a standalone. You can close your eyes and you can imagine what's going on. There is a radio station in South Sudan, and there is not a Christian television station. And so that might be a good possibility for them to be able to play over the airwaves.
The teaching.
The teaching of Tetelestai, enhanced by all this
So
amazing.
as you guys see, we just put the link down there for the whole playlist to the Tetelestai soundtrack. If you guys want to listen to it while you're studying, or just listen to it because it's cool, it's right there. And it tells you every single episode, and maybe you guys can figure out which episode it is just by the sound. It's
Now,
right down there in the link.
What you can't miss, though, is
Don't forget to subscribe.
yes, and follow us on our social media channels, and you'll be able to see a lot of the making of, behind the scene pictures and stories, right, Steph? We've been working on. And don't miss this week, because Stephanie,
It's next week.
it's next week. Stephanie's going to be sharing a lot of really crazy pictures from behind the scenes, because what we're going to be highlighting next Thursday is special effects makeup and special effects in general, not just the special effects makeup, but lots of other stuff. Like what stuff?
What, makeup or the special
Besides
effects?
the special effects.
Well,
makeup.
we'll be talking too about the costuming and props making, just all of that in general. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna show you guys lots of pictures, and it's gonna be with Joel. So you'll get to see Joel that was Jesus, and also built a lot of the props and
also had to endure what, 3 hours
3
of
days.
makeup?
Oh yeah, he did a lot of
Or no,
3
not
hours of makeup every time before he went on the cross. Yeah, and we did that for 3 days.
Pretty amazing. So don't miss the stories. That's going to be right here next Thursday. So thank you, everybody who joined us tonight. Thank you so much, John.
If there's any questions too, write them down in the live chat on next to you. If you guys
We
have
love
any
to
questions.
hear your letters and stories, and soon our new website will also be live, where there's a place you can type in your story and your experience with Tetelestai as well. Be looking for all of Light in Action's new productions, and thank you for all of our partners and all of those of you who are partners in prayer as well. It's because of you that we are doing what we are doing, and that we have this studio. Some of you give specifically toward this studio in order to make it a reality. So thank you for standing behind us so that we can produce film in order to reach the unreached. So God bless you. Go ahead, John.
And be praying, because all of this, this art, whether it's music, whether it's sound effects, whether it's the lines or the photography, the whole goal of this is exactly what Cynthia said. We are trying to find ways that we can get into the hearts and minds of people who have a completely different culture than we do, so that they might be induced to search out what the gospel means, who Jesus Christ really is. And our deepest prayer is that they might come to a knowledge and understanding of who Jesus Christ is, and that this art, the beauty, that might just be a stepping stone so that they can actually dig their minds into the Bible. And so that is our prayer. And our goal is to be producing new films to reach unreached people groups, and producing Tetelestai, even a new version of Tetelestai, to get into the most remote and spiritually dark places in the world. So be praying for all of that.
Amen. And one of the most beautiful things about art, by being able to, together with the soundtrack and with the beauty of the scene, there is a way that it seems to knock down natural barriers of people's intellectual arguments. And before you know it, you have bypassed those intellectual arguments, and you are touching on heartstrings. And then the real power, which is in the power of the Word of God, is finding a place and a heart that is receptive. And so we're just very thankful for this time in history in which technology we have these tools, and in many countries around the planet, the only way to reach these places is through media. And so we're very, very blessed to be a part of that. So thank you for your prayers. Please stay in touch and don't miss the next live. It's going to be great.
Same
God
time
bless
next
you.
week.
See you then.
Bye, guys.
Bye. That was great.
It was.